There was a lively river once, so beautiful, one could only dream of holding it deep within cupped bare hands. And while it would seem impossible, our descendants somehow managed to do this. Of soothing, gentle waters, inside the warmth of acknowledgement. In translation, it simply means, I see you. There was a lively river once, and has it become too late to salvage the ways of a river preserving, running down, running out, of waters cold, of a flow in near silence, moving gentle now, and close to still.
Boogeyman tries to say I love you and a maggot crawls out his mouth. Today, he will pick the carcass from his teeth, will practice smiling and it will not be stale and decaying, will make a chapel of these catacombs, will make a shrine of his lips. Boogeyman might just use a pickup line. There must be something wrong with my eyes because I can't take them off you. Then Boogeyman will put his eyes back into their sockets. Be gentle. It's his first time. He is learning the fullness of a heart well loved. His chest drags him to the ground, finds himself in prayer. He is unaccustomed to this weight. His body has had no space for holy. But today, Boogeyman is in love, practices all his tender in front of the mirror, undresses from his monster, unties his intestines, and the butterflies come spilling out. They've been growing inside his belly. Fate wraps around his gut. Boogeyman has started believing in the future. He imagines his children and they are not ghosts. He's learning how to dream, has clawed himself out from the nightmares. Boogeyman is clean as an altar. I promise him there's nothing in your teeth. He tells me his love will no longer require sacrifice. Boogeyman smiles a sunrise that is a flower in bloom, a joy as wide as a sky with hands to hold you. He says, I love you, and springs a butterfly from his mouth. And all the old gods come to prayer beneath his tongue.
Sizwa bethi sidukile asizazi singobani silahla amasiko kepha siyathanda ukwagcina amasiko manje uligcina kanjani isiko ungazazi nesibongo sakho ngoba nabazali bethu abazazi ibongo zabo bayibiza ngezibongo zogogo bethu imvelaphi yethu sinokusiqhathana nembeza manje ngoba sesisaba ngisho ukungena emathandweni hleze uqomana nesihlobo sakho nje ngephuthu ungazi uzithakazela thina umuntu mawakho wadlwengula amadoda ayisithupha ngobumnyama ngoba kamazi yise ngakho manje sibona sizenza abelungu abamnyama nathi kasizenze sizama ukukhohlwa nje yimumva lethu le ncwadi encane ngibhalelwa abantu abasha baseningizimu Afrika ifundeka kanje Sisizukulwane esisha esondliwa abazali noma sekumele kube yithini esibondlayo asizenze isifundile iziqu sinazo amathuba emisebenzi nje agolozile sesazi ibindlala ngeyidakamizwa nocansi olungaphephile sizalwe ngesikhathi esimbi sendlala amathuba emisebenzi kawekho konke nenhlonipho abantu abadala sekwasiphelela ngesikhathi sicela umsebenzi kubaholi bona basinikeza ukufa nezisu uma besikhulelisa Imfundo isimahala, imisebenzi esibiza imali. Kukwenaka ukuthi ukhokha ngemali noma ukhokha ngomzimba wakho, kodwa kuzomela ukhokhile, ayikho into yamahala. Le inkulumo esiyithola kubaqashi njalo masilethe ama-CV. Sibhekane nesambane, bayadlwengula ngisho abafundisi emabandleni. Masibhekele abazali bethu abakhona, bathemba iy'ncengi ngaphezulu sizobalekela isimakade. Singamantombazanyana amancane, sifundile kasisebenzi. Sesisebenza khona nje ukusitshintshela abafana, iyona ndlela esicitha ngayo isizungu bakithi. Singabafanyana abancane, ijubane lethu lidlula lempunzi masibalekela isisu masiqeda ukukhulelisa. Ngoba nani niyaxaka nithi asondli, konje umbondla kanjani na usondliwe? Bakwethu impumelelo iyafana nokufa ngoba uyazi ukuthi izofika nini. Kwesinye isikhathi kuyenzeka kufika ukufa kuqala, impumelelo nje isatelebhele endleleni. Le ncwadi encane engiyibhalelwe abantu abasha baseNingizimu Afrika ifundeka kanje. Ngokakubhela chapter 1 verse 1.
Daughter Anine, sunflower of Bredasdorp. At least 9 times in one morning I have heard your name, flinched and shuddered at the details, the desecration of your temple violated by your brothers. Our deranged sons, one by one, witnessed and goaded each other. Frenzied minds, young yet hardened hands, they pushed, tore, shoved, cut, broke, choked, minute by minute, lost themselves, eventually abandoned you. As night fell, your family never knew they were losing you. Even the sky was numb that day. There was no rain, except your fading cries and tears running out of hope, of life, of time. Now, reporters, police, community leaders, and government repeat their statements of shock and devastation, phrases that puzzle and amplify the situation, not of a small town, but an entire nation, editing their pieces of the story, platforming their thoughts, their familiar declarations of intolerance and vigilance. Thousands more are stunned into shaking head silence. A sigh like a last breath stealing our words, hardening our backs as we feel the ricochet of a history of attacks dating back further than we can bear to remember. Their impact on a collective psyche so shattered that we think this story, thankfully, is not our own. Your suffering, the bones of this horrific truth, are best left alone. But you must know, beloved, brutalized one, that there are many more who will not forget your name. Its traumatic reverberation across our bodies. Sleepless, we listen for what lessons to unlearn, to teach. Try to extract from the brutal facts the useful questions. With 1 billion rising all over this troubled globe, in our intentional silence, our solidarity protest, through our dances of grief, collective defiance, we remember your being. In our prayers and meditations, through our speaking into this darkness, we mourn just as hard as we work to manifest a healing for all of us, a less bloodletting dawn.
Spoken poetry provides a dynamic commentary on events of the day. It gives a voice to the oppressed, and it has strong agency in movements such as hashtag Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ+, gender and decolonization, and other movements where the focus is on growing a society with values based on social justice. The spoken word poetry movement brings together poets of diverse backgrounds whose collective voices is a force for building a healthy democracy.
And I believe, oh I believe.
Spoken word is built on the values of free speech and creative expression. As a live performance art, spoken word poetry encourages audience reaction and engagement.
I answer the eternal question. Who am I? I am I. I am I. I am I. Thank you.
Spoken word poetry is unashamedly politicized. It draws upon racial, economic, and gender injustices as well as the zeitgeist of the nation for subject matter. We asked some poets about subjects that they have written about.
My poems deal with the current situation in the Republic of South Africa. I am a Khoi poet that lays claim on why does the Khoi question in Khoi language and cultural heritage is completely erased from the South African narrative in an arts in a general aspect. Also, my poems lay on activism of poetry for language and identity and cultural reclamation. And my name is Jeffrey Urasip Hatzenberg. I am from Stellenbosch or Klapmuts in the Western Cape, and that is what my poems is all about. Thank you very much.
Good day, I'm Kwa Muhle Museum, Tswana speaking, female, 30 years of age. My poems deal with political, social, and personal issues. It evolves on those bases. When it comes to social issues, I address issues that has to do with gender abuse, human rights, and so forth. When it comes to personal, it is my own personal writing. For example, I did a poem titled I'm Sorry, uploaded on YouTube and Kwa Muhle Museum. And when it has to do with community issues and political issues, I base on issues concerning community at large that inspire and try to drive change into the society at large through political spectrum, addressing issues that has to do with politics. So my poems deal with things that drive change and impact social beings at large. Thank you.
My poems deals with relationships and body positivity. Ekuboneni abantu besifazana abaningi befa phansi kwegama lothando, phezu kwegama lokuthi mina umuntu wami ngiyamthanda, mina ngalokho sohlukanisa ukufa. Ekubeni umuntu engaboni ukuthi uzimpela yini ithuna esaphila, njengokuhlala uqhubeka uthandane nomuntu noma ikuthuka. Umbekezelele uthi uzoshintsha. Aphinde futhi akuthuke, umbekezelele uthi uzoshintsha. Kuthi sekugcina ke agcine sekubeka isandla, uyithola usuvaleka ihlo, uyithola usunesibazi nje emzimbeni ngenxa yothando. So mina most of my poems asuke eqwashisa abantu besifazana ukuthi hlezi ku-eli umuntu sangaphuma kulelo thando aqhubeke nempilo. Umuntu sangaphuma nje ajubalala eqayela impilo yakhe entsha, angaze aphume kulolo thando ngebhokisi. Ziphinde futhi inkondlo zami zidile ne-body positivity. Ekuboneni futhi bona bonke abantu besifazane bezingabaza ngokubona emva kokuthi esehlukene nomuntu wakhe azayibeke namacala athi ngenzeka ukuthi lo muntu ngenza nje ubengichithela because ngimkhulu ingakho asefuna nokuthi azathola isilenda. Umuntu bengishaya ngoba ngimnyama kakhulu, mhlambe ngenzeka ukuthi uthando yele bon cha. Mina ke lapho ngengenelele ngibateketise especially eyidudleni, ngize ngimtshele umuntu ukuthi hayi nina nidudla nje niduvava nabaphathi bomhlaba nanathenga umhlaba cash noma ningaqoka iphendi liroleke nje kodwa nje kusalayo nibahle futhi nibakhulu. So sengenzela kona lokho ukuthi umuntu ngibooste i-ego yakhe, angabi ne low self esteem emva kokuphuma lolu thando liqhamuka kulona. Ngifuna ukuthi emva kwalokho umuntu aqhubeke ayigqaje ngoba yena usiliwa kangubane lo. Ngiyabonga.
What does my poems speak about? Most of my poems are all about self-expression. Some of them, they're all about my experiences and sharing them with people in a spoken word. And mostly I go on about motivating people beyond their circumstances, regardless of what they might be. And through poetry, we find a lot of healing, a lot of sharing, and sometimes people do find advice by just listening to a poem. And my poems are very versatile when it comes to subjects or even themes that I talk about in my poems. So in all, I can say I cover most different aspects in terms of literature, whereby I can also use a poem as some sort of a song for someone whom I can cheer up. Sometimes people read a poem and then they find a different message through that poem. So I can say my poems talk about a lot of things that are motivational, very, very encouraging, very, very enlightening, and as well as inspiring. But most of all, it carries a lot of hope. As the word John Tutu, that's what I am all about in my poems. For now, I just want to thank you, everyone. Thank you.
My poems deal with bringing the human message to life through the expression of emotions, the tone of my voice, and my body language in which the spoken words are put into action. These poems evoke the experience and motivate the creative power when reaching the audience. Thank you.
Spoken word poetry is one of the more impactful programs through which the Center for Creative Arts at the University of KwaZulu-Natal has engaged with youth and social movements over the last 25 years. Poetry Africa is an annual international poetry festival curated and presented by the Center for Creative Arts at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. The week-long program, which takes place in the last quarter of the year, features engagements with poets through campus and school visits, poetry exchanges, book launches, open mic sessions, evening performances, and the ever-popular Slam Jam at venues across the city of Durban. The festival is curated by Spindile Shlangwa, whose energetic vision has led Poetry Africa to become one of the most significant contemporary poetry events on the South African calendar. Over the past 7 years that Spindile has curated the festival, she has extended its footprint across the African continent and brokered partners for Poetry Africa with festivals across Europe.
Sanbonan. The Poetry Africa Festival has been for the past 25 years and will continue to being an important force for social change and serve as a connector for poets in South Africa and the world. The festival is an uncensored space that is actively promoting freedom of speech and freedom of creativity that is on the Section 16 of the South African Constitution. As brokers of cultural exchanges and collaborations with international counterparts such as Ukraine, Brussels, Catalan, UK, US, Italy, just to name a few, we pride ourselves as Africa's anchor festival that have remained as a mirror for society to reflect on how have we grown and what challenges and solutions we can bring to fight racism, gender-based violence, mental health, corruption, and discrimination. We have hosted many poets on our platform from all walks of life who have and will continue to respond to such societal injustices. With the Right to Speak project, we aim to delve into the hearts of KwaZulu-Natal and unearth young talent that can be able to feed into the ecosystem and how can they advocate for social change. We have a right to speak.
Not only is Poetry Africa's curator a woman, but the Poetry Africa Festival also strongly and consciously advances the voices of women poets in the spoken word poetry movement. In 2021, Poetry Africa selected Sipokazi Jonas as the festival's featured poet. Sipokazi Jonas is a writer, poet, performer, and producer with a laudable national footprint and growing international presence.
Being selected as the Poetry Africa 2021 featured poet is truly an honor and a career highlight. I think back to scribbling my poems in a notebook at 14 during break time, using every spare moment to pour my unstructured feelings out on a page. And I find myself grateful for being part of the history of this incredible festival that platforms both emerging and established voices around the continent and around the world. Thank you so much for the celebration of the work that I do, the collaborators that I work with, and what will hopefully be a lifelong contribution to this much loved field of spoken word and poetry. I'm excited to see the voices that will emerge. I'm excited to see future featured poets and the kind of work that we need to support as much as we possibly can. Thank you so much, Poetry Africa. I was given more than 10 names on the day of my birth, and I have earned many since. Maleta, Mamdakwende, Kwangeshe, Vilemkube. These are the names of my forefathers who made everyday history. They are knitted into my breath. It is how I introduce myself. Clan names are how we carry the past to meet ourselves. South Africa is the place of many names. We peek through the majestic God's window to read stories preserved for us in rocks and sand dunes. We grind secrets and healing out of the plants which are native to this place. Caves are breathtaking gallery walls exhibiting our history. In bodies of water, from the mouth of the Limpopo River into the Indian Ocean, are traces of how the country maps itself. We ask grand mountains to tell us how they call themselves. And the Drakensberg is not just Drakensberg, it is Ukhahlaba, the barrier of spears. Table Mountain is Hurikwaho, the beautiful mountain in the sea, a monument to the first people of this place. I wonder if animals have their own clan names, Mitupo, and whether elephants, for all their memory, remember the stories their own ancestors witnessed. In Africa Burwa, we trace blood that flows back for centuries through shared names. It is how we make family. We are not done creating history. In the scraps that remain, we quilt ourselves into exquisite print. In the gedichte, in liedjies, poems, and songs that we write, the fashion that reimagines village tradition, the township lives framed in high resolution, skyscrapers like vibrant graffiti against a wall every day. Yina yitsalama vitolama, so we write new names. And many of us know this place by one name, home. But we are always ready to make new family, to add new names in the fabric of our story, like yours.
Whilst Poetry Africa recognizes the dynamic voices of young women in the spoken word poetry movement, Poetry Africa is also committed to advancing the voices of legendary women poets whose voices, poems, and gravitas advances the cause for social justice.
Saartjie's cry. Oh mother, I'm not me. My soul has been lost in this journey. Here where the clouds hardly leave the sky, the sun never appears to kill the lie. Oh mother, it's not just my soul they've torn apart, it is my very heart. They call me savage, they call me whore, they call me names I haven't heard before. It's only in the wee hours of the night that the fluid in the bottle makes my body all right. In my dreams, I see our mountain with its foot in the bay, our eland, our springbok, our wildebeest at play, how we run up the hill so steep, go dive for fish in the ocean so deep, and I cringe, oh mother, I die to think that we were all caught up in this lie. when next you do your dance to our sun, please remember your forgotten one. Hold your hands high up to the sky. Send me the wings so that I may fly.
Diana Ferris is a South African legend who not only uses her voice to advance poetry for social justice, but who also plays a vital role in intergenerational dialogue. In December 2021, Ferris participated in the inaugural Poetry Encounters residency project organized by the Centre for Creative Arts in Rubik Valley in the Western Cape.
The most beautiful thing for me of the outreach to Rubik Valley was the creative writing workshop we did the Saturday morning. The participants were of such a diverse nature, different races, different languages, different classes, and different ages. And I think it was probably for the first time in my life that I experienced something like that. All these different people together on this beautiful Saturday morning. And I don't think that I was ever as close to feeling something of reconciliation the way I felt that morning. I was extremely surprised when we did the first round of just asking participants what did they expect, who they were, and what they expected from the workshop. And it was just mind-blowing to hear how people were sharing from the onset. It was a holy space for me. And there we heard each other like we never heard each other on a very, very grassroots level. And I can't help it but just thank the organizers for that idea of the outreach to the rural parts of South Africa. This is the kind of thing I think that can happen. The workshop went off very, very successfully. We were 3 that facilitated, and I think everybody there, all the participants, were very happy. And I think all were very touched, and it was a significant moment in everybody there's lives.
Warm earth spills from the insides of Boogeyman's cheeks. Worms eat through his jaws, unhinged, burrow out his teeth, let in wet soil, searching for sunrise. Roots wrap around his skull, break out of his coffin. Boogeyman is coming loose at the sockets, spreading dead tissue and skin cells across the cosmos, carried in the belly of bacteria and bugs. Boogeyman returns to the stars, floats right past the bottom of the bed, leaves Black Boy's body behind, finds himself in every atom, as many as there are galaxies and grains of sand. Boogeyman is a footprint on the shore at high tide. He is in the gathering clouds and the misty rain that clings to Black Boy's skin as he dances into the sky. Boogeyman is everywhere. In the photographs of all the homies he's lost, in the urns that crowd his mantles and memorials, in the memories, faded yellow and crumbling over gravestones, in between the kisses shared with lovers long gone on nights he can't right now remember. Boogeyman is the universe dreaming of himself, and Black Boy watches the stars blossom one by one, makes a bouquet of the sky and places it at the foot of his bed every night, hoping this time Boogeyman does not leave.
Abisovili is the winner of Poetry Africa's 2021 Slam Poetry Competition. He will represent South Africa at the International Slam Poetry Competition in Brussels later this year.
Hi, I am Abisovili, and yeah, so I'm a slammer, right? I slam quite often, but I also think that people put too much emphasis on the slam and the competition itself, whereas it's not actually, the slam isn't the point. Right? I remember Hodari Davis telling me back in Washington DC, the founder of Brave New Voices, and he was like, kids will, the slam is like Sesame Street, right? Kids will come and they'll watch Sesame Street and they'll have their favorite characters and they'll be like, I like Elmo, or I like Big Bird, and you know, it will be like this like, you know, vibrant community that the kids can be a part of. But by the end of Sesame Street, the kids have learned their ABCs. The kids have learned their 1, 2, 3s, right? And so I think this is why I enjoy the slam. And I mean, this is then also then speaking back to this idea of using work and using this work for social change, right? Is that we can be watching the slam, but by the end of it, we've dealt with issues of gender-based violence, we've dealt with issues of racism, we've dealt with issues of sexism, we've dealt with a multitude of issues through an accessible form and an accessible format. And I think that also the arts, poetry in particular, is such a powerful vehicle and such a powerful tool for addressing social ills and for community work and for community development. And so I think it's so important that we speak power back into the words, back into our communities, if we really want to start imagining a different world, if we want to start imagining a different future, if we want to start imagining differently. It's so important that we engage with writing, that we engage with performance, that we engage with the arts. If we want to reimagine and remember and put it together, put back our humanity together, the arts is a vital tool in doing that.
The Centre for Creative Arts at the Poetry Africa Festival take pride in being selected as the host to the launch of the Right to Speak initiative, which over the next few months will see partners from the project host a series of live and digital events that will advance the way in which South African poets can engage with poets from across the globe, while at the same time continue to strengthen South Africa's democracy and promote a culture of human rights. The Right to Speak project is a partnership initiative funded by the European Union of National Institutes of Culture, and more commonly known as EUNIC. Joined together in 133 clusters in 103 countries worldwide, the EUNIC clusters engage in cultural relations and co-creating activities with partner organizations. The Right to Speak project, headed by the Goethe Institute in South Africa, brings together the French Institute of South Africa, the Representation of Flanders, and the Wallonie Bruxelle to partner with the Centre for Creative Arts, the Hear My Voice project, and the Stand Foundation to collaborate and present a series of hybrid events that use poetry as a vehicle for young people to critically engage with the concepts of human rights and their experiences in the world. The partners take pride in launching this dynamic program today on 21 March, which marks South Africa's Human Rights Day and UNESCO's International Poetry Day.
Dear audience and dear fellow collaborators, my name is Josefina Heide. I am working in the Cultural Programs Department at the Goethe Institute, South Africa, and I'm really excited that we are today launching our project Right to Speak. It has been a collaborative effort of all the partners involved, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all. Namely, you are the Center for Creative Arts in Durban, Hear My Voice, Stand Foundation, the Representation of Flanders and Wallonie Bruxelle, the Institut Français in South Africa, as well as the Goethe Institute. The project has been created in order to create opportunities for young poets and poetry organizations from South Africa and Europe to collaborate, to exchange, and to think of future collaborations. We see poetry as an artistic and creative way of sparking conversations about human rights. In fact, poetry across centuries, language boundaries, and locations has always been a vehicle to drive those conversations and to express resistance towards human rights violations. Especially in South Africa during the struggle against apartheid, poetry was an important vehicle to give people of the struggle a voice. I would like to end my message with a poem by the great Maya Angelou. It's called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the singing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But the caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied. So he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown, but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. May the universal language of poetry inspire our hearts and minds to do our bit in advocating for human rights across language boundaries, across countries, across cultures, in the spirit of creative dialogue. Thank you so much.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear poetry lovers, bonjour. On behalf of the French Institute of South Africa, it gives me a great pleasure to celebrate today, here at the time of the Writer Festival, the new EUNIC project, Right to Speak. This is a very special event as the festival celebrates its 25th birthday. When Time of the Writer was first organized, this country was a very different place. It has just emerged from the dark decade of the apartheid regime. Today, the festival mirrors the vibrant and hopeful democracy of a new generation which has overcome this difficult legacy through their energy, confidence and talents, but above all through their words. Why is this project Right to Speak important? Perhaps it is because poetry does not just tell us stories, it opens dialogue. A dialogue between the poet and their readers, a dialogue between the past and the present, between the imaginary and the real. Sometimes poets rebel and hold up a mirror to our problems, but they also open conversation between people, communities, generations, and between countries. This is why launching the Right to Speak project at this anniversary event seems so important to me. It honors poets who use their voices to fight for equality. It celebrates poets who enable people from different cultures and backgrounds to better understand one another. This is something that all of you who have joined us here understand. I would like to thank the Center for Creative Arts at the University of KwaZulu-Natal for organizing this incredible festival every year for so long, and especially Ismail Mahomed, director of the center, and Sifindile Longwa, curator of Time of the Writer. I would like also to thank all my counterparts from European countries who are involved in these beautiful projects. Many thanks. Have a nice festival. Merci beaucoup.
The EUNIC Essay Cluster has always strived towards a close relationship with our South African partners, working towards mutual engagement on equal footing. When a project is co-created and builds on a needs-based approach, it will always have a bigger impact. The Right to Speak project is just such an endeavor. It puts the poets and the art of the spoken word at the fore, not only by showcasing the poetry itself, but also by strengthening the poets through creating opportunities for capacity building, to network and exchange knowledge. An important aspect is the inclusion of conversations between Europe and South Africa on both the institutional level and the individual level of the poet. Poetry and the spoken word are exciting literary and narrative channels which can reach a vast audience comprising young and old, people from different cultures and diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, the fortunate, but also the marginalized and the disenfranchised. It is precisely this inclusivity which makes poetry such an effective and emotive channel for engaging with human rights issues. Human rights involve and impact people and break down the barriers which differentiate us by focusing on the one thing we all share in common, our humanity. Human rights are both universal and deeply personal in their power to affect and shape lives. Poetry, likewise, is both universal and intensely personal. It, too, breaks down barriers by playing with words, creating revolutionary patterns or syntax, disregarding rules and questioning preconceived order. It can be argued that nothing has greater power than the word. A word can condemn or save. It can hurt or heal. It can damage or mend. And that is why the right to speak is so crucial. The spoken word must reach all and must be available to all. It is no wonder then that so many poets use this powerful vehicle of language to highlight human rights, expose injustice, and express that about which many remain silent. Let us then remember that the right to speak is a fundamental human right. Happy International Poetry Day, and let us all try to make every day Human Rights Day.
On this 21st of March, we celebrate Human Rights Day in South Africa. But today, it's also the launch of the Right to Speak project in South Africa. Wallonie Bruxelle International is honored and proud to take part in the Right to Speak project together with so many wonderful partners. Wallonie Bruxelle International promotes arts and culture from French-speaking Belgium on the international stage. It also fosters artistic and cultural collaborations between French-speaking Belgium and South Africa. Belgium and Wallonie Bruxelle International are committed to the defense of human rights, the right to freedom of speech, to freedom of expression, the right to participate in the cultural life of the country or of the community, and the right to rejoice the arts. It's also very important for us to support and to follow emerging artists, emerging voices, and to build bridges with other emerging voices in other parts of the world. We do believe that poetry, spoken word, or slam, as we call it in French, is a powerful tool for establishing a dialogue between different cultures. According to its founder, Mark Smith, slam poetry can be understood as a positive way of opening up the poetry scene to everyone, but also as an international family of poets. The slam scene in Belgium is vibrant, and women play a key role in this emergence. We are confident that the Right to Speak project will create a fruitful and sustainable dialogue between international artists and South African artists. Today, more than ever, artists' voices need to be heard. So I look forward to the Right to Speak events during 2022. I look forward to the conversation that they will engender, and I look forward to the collaborations and the future project that will be coming out from these conversations. I thank you.
The Sustaining Theatre and Dance Stand Foundation is an independent, non-profit and public benefit entity created by individuals within the sector to nurture, promote and celebrate contemporary South African dance and theatre. In 2021, the Stand Foundation, in partnership with the Centre for Creative Arts and the Human Rights Foundation, launched an anthology titled Poetry for Human Rights, bringing together some of South Africa's leading poetry voices. Hear My Voice is a non-profit organization based in the city of Tshwane, South Africa, with a focus to develop spoken word artists as well as create an open and uncensored platform for self-expression through spoken word poetry. The Hear My Voice NGO achieves this through organizing local and international exchange programs, workshops, live spoken word shows, open mics, and other literature programs for schools, private companies, government, libraries, festivals, and other cultural institutions.
Remnants of apartheid are felt when elders are scared to speak or reprimand, let alone whistleblow. But the South African Constitution, Chapter 16, reminds us that we have the right to speak. I am Mwafrika wa Mokhati, co-founder of Hear My Voice, and we are very excited to be part of Right to Speak, led by the Goethe Institute, alongside their partners and collaborators. Poetry has been a catalyst of addressing social ills, and we are very much excited to see that this program will see South African poets and European poets have a platform to voice out, to speak. Make sure that you stick around as we will be laying out programs throughout the year that are very exciting for the marginalized voices within the outskirts of our countries. We're looking forward to see you there. #Right to Speak. Thank you to EUNIC for making sure that these programs are possible with the unique European spaces of culture. Tobe.
The Right to Speak partners have engaged Kakaza Mohare as the project manager to liaise with all partners and coordinate the project. Kakaza Mohare has an illustrious career from being a journalist to being a multi-skilled strategist in the digital and youth development sectors. She is a multi-skilled strategist with a passion for youth development, technology and education, and literature. She is currently the COO at Digify Africa, an award-winning digital skills academy that has trained over 90,000 Africans. She is also a founding director of the African Youth Literature Institute, a creative and academic social enterprise that is passionate about young people with literature on the African continent. The Institute's most notable work is the Word and Sound Live Literature Movement, the continent's biggest digital youth poetry brand.
Good day. My name is Kakaza Mohare, and I am the Implementation Coordinator for the Right to Speak project. Now, I have the absolute pleasure of working with all of our amazing project partners to bring Right to Speak to life. Now, over and above all of the project activities, the various events and workshops that we will be hosting, we also will be running a digital campaign that truly celebrates poetry's powerful ability to spark conversation and to connect us across borders. Please join us on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as the project rolls from today through to October 2022. Each month, we'll have a dedicated theme and various writing prompts to encourage word lovers around the world to engage with the various issues around human rights that affect us all. Now, this engagement can take place as short comments on the posts, response poems, or take part in our 6-word story challenge, a really fun way to play with words and get the conversation going.
With the Center for Creative Arts championing spirit, quest for excellence, and commitment to social advancement, the Center for Creative Arts is proud to be the host organization to launch the Right to Speak project from the Kwa Muhle Museum in Durban. Welcome to the Kwa Muhle Museum in central Durban. This building, which holds artifacts from our past, but it also affords us an opportunity to make sense of our current context. It is here, amongst its deep and textured history, that we map out ways to envision a better future for ourselves. This building was once the most despised structures in the city. It is from this building where the basic human right of African people was trampled on every single day. Formerly known as the Department of Native Affairs, it is from here where the government enforced its apartheid laws that controlled the lives and movement of African people. It is from here where the past laws were administered in KwaZulu-Natal. With the advent of democracy in South Africa, the Department of Native Affairs became redundant. This building, which once echoed with voices of brutality by the oppressive government and resistance from a people's movement, was given a new life. This building has been transformed into a place of hope and optimism. It is now a place in which diversity is celebrated, and it is a place where those who were once despised are now treated with dignity. Human Rights Day in South Africa commemorates the 1960 Sharpeville massacre, when the apartheid state brutally killed 69 people with live ammunition and wounded more than 300 people in a peaceful protest against South Africa's hated past laws. News of the event was televised worldwide, whilst the apartheid state remained unmoved by its careless action. The day had historically been remembered in South Africa's liberation struggle as Sharpeville Day. With the dawn of democracy in 1994, Sharpeville Day was officially designated as Human Rights Day to honor the 69 martyrs whose spirits continue to inspire our nation's quest for social equality, justice, and human dignity for all.
Well, about the Sharpeville massacre, I think I know what was it all about, or the main point was, which was police officers in, I think it's called Birmingham, sorry for the pronunciation, opened shots on about 250 black people, leaving them wounded and some even dying on the spot. And I relate to this a lot because I'm a black student in a university that is struggling and still relates to being suppressed and not being able to help other students in need from poor backgrounds and obviously black, and just like me, we're having difficulties of being admitted to tertiary institutions. And as a student leader, I think history keeps on repeating itself in more ways than one.
The 21st of March is considered Sharpeville Day, but I think it's Human Rights Day now. And it was when police shot a whole lot of demonstrators. I'm not sure, I think it was 21 days, or it might be more. I can't actually remember, but that's what it's about.
I think it's quite influential.
I do know what it is. The exact details might be open to correction.
I'm going to say that I think it was quite influential for international galvanizing support against apartheid, sanctions and stuff.
What I know about Sharpeville massacre is that our own African black people were massacred there because they were fighting with the apartheid system during the apartheid era. A lot of them lost their lives due to that.
I think it was an incident which took place in a black township called Sharpeville, where police fired upon a group of black people, killing and wounding some, and yeah, we are not forgotten about it. So and we'll never forget about it. So I think that's all.
Cool.
The Sharpeville Massacre. Not only was the Sharpeville Massacre a significant incident in South African history, but it's also one that I like to refer to as the beginning of the end of apartheid. Now I say this because the Sharpeville Massacre so accurately highlights the need of every nation for a just and righteous authority, as it so tragically depicts the repercussions of having a country run by racist, diabolical, and immoral individuals. The Sharpeville Massacre portrays how tired the people of color were of the oppressive system of the time, the systemic racism and the discrimination. All in all, the Sharpeville Massacre was a fundamental step towards a democratic South Africa, and it's one of the reasons why people of color have a voice today. Thank you.
Greetings, my name is Khalifa Mazibugo. I'm 24 years old. I'm from a small town called Ladysmith. 62 years ago, 21st of March 1960, a painful day, a painful reminder, and a painful memory for a lot of our black brothers and sisters, for a lot of our moms and dads, and even grandparents. A day in South Africa where a peaceful protest turned into something violent, turned into an event, an occurrence where a lot of us will never forget. Looking back and having studied briefly regarding apartheid and all the events such as the Sharpeville Massacre, such as June 16, Soweto uprising, one gets a sense that looking at how things are right now, we are very, very fortunate. We are very, very fortunate in the sense that during apartheid, it was very difficult for a lot of people to voice their opinions. A lot of our black people were very oppressed, went through significant amounts of torture, significant amounts of pain in order to fight for what we have today, in order to fight for the freedom that we have today. I thank the government for recognizing the 21st of March as a public holiday, but in also commemorating the lives lost and the blood that was shed amongst our brothers and sisters.
Hi, my name is Goethe. The Sharpeville Massacre is a day that we shall forever remember. It's a day that laid the foundation for freedom of speech and freedom of protest. This was a day in history that people took to the streets to voice out their opinion on how they felt about the right to carry a dompus. They didn't want to do it, and they used their voice to voice out their opinions. And unfortunately, the police at the time used lethal weapons to control them. So they said. And the blood ran the streets on that day. And that day will forever remember in our history. However, it played a crucial role in laying the foundation for us today. Today we have the right to freedom, we have the right to speech, the right to protest because of that day. And we will forever remember them. Thank you.
Today, it is not unusual to stand in this building and to hear poetry and music, or to watch dance or films which celebrates the human spirit and our people's resilience. The arts in South Africa have always been a dynamic platform for social change and transformation. From using our bodies and voices to resist apartheid, challenge censorship, and mobilize our collective energies, our people's struggles have birthed a new democracy in which the voices of the artists are the threads and fabric that weave our society together.
The arts in South Africa has always been a dynamic platform for social change and transformation. From using our bodies and our voices to fight against apartheid, challenge censorship, or mobilizing our collective energies to realize a new democracy. The artists are the threads and fabric that holds our society together. We, the people, through whose bodies the spirits of our ancestors flow. We are inspired by their struggles. We draw courage from their fearless resistance. We stand tall to offer hope to future generations. We, the people, the poets, the writers, the singers, the crafters, and all of us who gather under the single banner of artists, we are the word bearers of truth. We are the influencers. We are the voices of hope, courage, and resilience.
It is from here at the Kwa Muhle Museum where the Center for Creative Arts has presented several of its festival events. It is from here where, together with our partners, the Goethe Institute, the French Institute of South Africa, the Representation of Flanders, and the Wallonie Bruxelle, and supported by the European Union Institutes of Culture, that the Center for Creative Arts is proud to officially launch the Right to Speak project. Poetry, like music, dance, and literature, stirred the soul of President Nelson Mandela. He valued the arts so much that he boldly declared, "Artists reach areas far beyond the reach of politicians. Art, especially entertainment and music, is understood by everybody, and it lifts the spirits and the morale of those who hear it."
Hi, I'm Helen Moffat, and I'm very honoured to have been asked to read a poem at the launch of the Right to Speak event at the time of the writer. My poem is about the nearly 3 months my sister spent in hospital with COVID, 9 of those weeks in ICU, much of that on a ventilator. She lived, and this is a poem that I wrote about the experience. It's called Service Dogs. I can't pray for the first time in my life. Can't get past us sinners now at the hour of our death, and forgive us our trespasses. This has nothing to do with sin or trespass. This is my sister's life I am interceding for. But a Muslim grandmother is gently steering me, telling me what to imagine instead. Open her thymus, encourage the T-cells to emerge. It sounds like hokum, but how can it be less hokey than the prayer's alkaline in my desert mouth? And so, every night, I start the sheepdog run. The thymus is easy. I send out cells in a golden glitter fest to thicken the infectious agents sinister in her blood. And when those sticky black shadows are discernible, I whistle up the sheepdogs. They leap out of her spleen, barking, and race down to her feet and toes, rounding up their quarry, bustling the evil before them. The dog that hurtles down her left side is black and white, with manically bright eyes. The one on the right has golden patches, a different breed. She's quieter, but no less determined. Back they come, up through my sister's veins, darting down her arms, into her fingers, whipping round. The tarry, nervy black is clustered into 2 pens, 1 for each kidney. And that's where they're flushed, down the tubes, me shouting, "Out, out, out, get out of her!" And the dogs are barking, "Arf, arf, 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 arf." It gets quite noisy. We do this for 1 week, 2, then 3, a 4th. Still the infection lingers, sepsis, her blood itself contaminated as the machine hisses and cranks, her lungs open and closed. I ask for further directions. Focus on her intestines. Organs of elimination, so that makes sense. The sheepdogs still dash around her bloodstream, but 2 new dogs patrol with me in the inner dark of the sewer. They are huge, black, melancholy. Their eyes are pale and kind. They are silent as they pad. I rely on them in this place of darkness broken only by the sound of water dripping. I can see nothing, but a sense of warmth and the chill comes from their rough coats. As the weeks crawl past, I notice there's less black, less debris. It's a clean-up job now, the battle no longer a war. The news from the hospital, the infection markers and oxygen levels, the alphabet soup of HAI and CPAP, these entrails read more optimistically now. The dogs sigh, unprick their ears, curl up on some internal hearth, never to be forgotten. Good dogs. Good dogs. Good dogs.
In my hour of anguish, fine peace is buried beneath my tongue. This grave is unsound. I can smell my death. The soul surrounding me speaks of how God rejects his children who live this world by suicide. So we teleport questions to the stars. How can one disappear from his creator unnoticed? Maybe suicide stretches its neck to be noticed. Hanging at its birthplace, heavy becomes the word of rest as blood screams to a halt. It has no use here. Body salt seasons the oculus, turning it into teardrops entering hell, carrying all my burdens from this visited sphere. Perhaps my brother is waiting on the other side with his fallen angels. We are the color of sin. The only direction familiar is downhill. Even the dams of mercy fail to baptize our bodies and teach us to kneel, to give thanks for our existence. So we commit murder to ourselves. That's how we find ease.
The tongue paints pictures of things the heart sees. I am from a society we were uprooted by voluntary conflict. It is where I'm part of a tribe of thick-skinned daughters and sons raised on dark days in this cold world by mothers who prayed, worked hard so we become what our fathers couldn't be to us, fighting for justice in this war zone we were born into. Our dreams are armors of soon-to-fall night who said, kings and queens of the day are all those who granted forgiveness towards themselves at night. History said to us, do tell your stories, they deserve to be told by the very tongues that tasted the agony that came with them. So this is for us, but mostly for all that inspires us. I write to let you know that acceptance has taught our bodies the language of glowing, and that we do not fear darkness. Now we know that we are light, and that our halos lit up the sky at night. Travelers taught us that the greatest journey starts within, said we are alchemists, and our silence says more about who we are. Our temples are home to children who knows not impossibilities, who say the sky is the limit to those who sit on their wings, and that we are divinity's reflections, coated with melanin, the great ones, the everything and more, the special spirits that heaven is waiting for, who shook the clouds till they screamed thunder on skies forbidding. I am growing and I have seen some heroes do not fly, they listen. And imagination is more of a time machine used by our souls for traveling. There is a realm that teaches us to close our eyes to see our myriad blessings of having nature sings life to our lungs. Your prudence shows that you're infinite miles away from the box they thought you should think from. I'm also awed where I come from. So when some see me, they will say, he's a bit insane. Little do they know that midnight o'clock is a great time to be alive. On the journey, go back to myself, I've met strangers, and I mean like complete strangers, who told me that we spent our lives looking for our hearts. Some said, you need to understand this, Mazu, you are not lost. We're just collecting pieces of ourselves we scattered around. We once went crazy in love. That was before the silent treatment left us ailing, saying, now memories expose us to sorrow and despair. We live to watch the possibility of walking down the aisle shrink to disappear, but there is hope, because music is healing. I learned that when a songbird told me that love is sometimes not in the air, but in the hearts of those who seek for it there, so do retrospect, because at times the biggest step you can take is a step back, learning that we are conquerors sculpted by our experiences of failing. I made words my religion because I'm amongst the mended masses who are asking, where do broken souls go?